Chicago football fans, it's time for Take the North Live with Mark Grody and Dan Wiederer on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score and live on the free Odyssey app.
What's happening, everybody? Wow. We got a live crowd here in the Blue Cross Blue Shield Performance Studio. This absolutely is the Take the North podcast live on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score, along with Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. I am Mark Grody of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. First of all, I just want to say to all of the people that are here, thank you for coming out. We know that this is a tough time. I mean, it's 6 o'clock in the middle of the week, so it's raining. So seriously appreciate that you guys are here, and we'll get into this here. I just want to let you guys know we've got a lot to talk about, but in our second segment, we are going to move the microphone around a little bit here. So if you guys have questions or comments, if you just want to vent about the Bears, we are here for you. Anything goes on a podcast. Well, maybe not so much because we're actually on the Score.
No, you can still let it fly.
You can just let it fly. So this is Dan Wiederer.
No swearing, please.
That is Adam Stadzinski. Here's our producer watching over us here today. Ryan Parth is in the back as well. He's our program director. That's the famous Chris Tannehill as well. Look at Lawrence Holmes is in the house as well. Wiederer, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. You know what I say? The Take the North audience is the smartest Bears podcast audience in all of football, right? And here they are. This is the most loyal of the bunch here tonight to watch us do it. So it's fun to have everybody out here.
No doubt about it. Packed house here. Here's what we got coming up. Here's what we have planned. It is a podcast, so sometimes we might just scrap the whole thing and just whatever we want to do. But in moments from now, we are going to be joined by Jared Payton, of course, the son of the great Walter Payton, who does great television work on WGN. So we're going to talk to him here in just a few minutes. Today, Dan and I this has been a furious day for us. It's been a non-stop day because we spent the greater portion of this day out at Haugh today. They unveiled everybody to us, the coordinators, and even more importantly, we got to meet some of the new position coaches today. So it was quite the experience.
Every assistant coach available out there. Fun to start to get to know those guys. I shared this anecdote with you when I was driving down here. Antoine Randall came in to do his media availability at the podium, and I've never met Antoine before. He came in, he pointed at me, he said, "I owe you one." I said, "What do you owe me for?" He said, "I took one of your mints off your desk." So this tin of Altoids, Antoine felt comfortable enough to take off my desk, rip one out, and pop an Altoid. I don't know if that's legal, but he's going to owe me for a while on that one, I think.
I think so. And it's Dan will, I think he was saying this before, Dan will autograph this, and it will be given away to somebody in the audience a little bit later on. Also want to give thanks to the man back there running our board for the show, the guy that put it together, Rich Wyatt, one of the greatest producers of all time. He engineers, I should say. He does all the Bulls games. He's done many things, and he's a very important part of everything we do out here at Odyssey and, of course, on the Take the North podcast as well. There is some news that has broken this week with the Chicago Bears. And, first of all, as you all know, Kyler Gordon has gotten his extension, that he's not going anywhere. Also, the Bears have made it official today that TJ Edwards also is locked in for another 2 years and $20 million. And Dan, you and I have talked about some of these core players on the Bears, and these are two guys, without a doubt, that are worthy of the extensions. And we don't always say such things because we keep it real on the podcast. Yeah.
I think it's really notable that they're extended before they've actually been on the field practicing for this new coaching staff. And so I think some of that traces back to the front office being able to relay, okay, these are the work habits. You watch the tape. You see what you see. Tell us what you see, and then we'll tell you about the character. Two guys worthy of the extensions for sure. And then to hear Dennis Allen talk about both of them today, you can hear some of the defensive vision starting to come together with Gordon. It was certainly attention-grabbing to hear some of the things that Dennis Allen has in mind, at least to experiment with Kyler Gordon moving around between the slot, outside corner, maybe some safety involved in there. I think everybody kind of had their ears perk up when he said that today.
Yeah, let's give our audience a quick. We're going to bring in JP here in just 1 second. Before we get to this, we can talk about it more, Dan. Let's talk a little bit about TJ Edwards.
Yeah.
It's the extension. What did you learn today about what might happen with TJ Edwards?
Look, I think that they are very, very serious about giving him a try at middle linebacker, which would then necessitate moving Tremaine Edmonds outside. I think that's going to be an ongoing experimental process throughout the spring, but it really feels like there's momentum headed in that direction. The one thing you get from talking to Dennis Allen is conviction. You know, he sees what he sees, and he feels like he's got some things there with both Gordon and TJ Edwards that he can utilize, and we'll see how they put those pieces together.
I can't wait to learn what he thinks about Tyreek Stevenson. I mean, that's obviously a hot spot in the secondary. I think he's a wholly talented player, but obviously there were some serious mishaps, not just the Hail Mary. His coverage was not great at times last year. You know, one thing that I had thought, about a month ago or so was look for potential competition this year, not add Kyler Gordon to the fray, but also Terrell Smith. Now, we don't know exactly how they feel about him, but I do know, and you know, and probably our audience knows, when they both came in together their first year, they did say that was a competition. Now, that was a different staff, obviously, and we're learning more about Dennis Allen, but that's just something that I would keep in the back of our minds, like some real competitions potentially going on in the OTAs and during training camp.
Yeah, it should be fascinating. And then, obviously, Jalen Johnson wants to be the number one corner who travels, and Dennis Allen today said that's going to be a week-by-week thing. They're going to try to figure that out, opponent-specific, and figure out what works the best. But I think Jalen is always raising his hand to take on more one-on-one workload.
Al Harris, quick thing here before we get to JP. Al Harris is the secondary coach, and I sat down with him with other reporters today. It was a very intimate sort of setting, and I said, what do you think about the idea that Jalen Johnson could be traveling? And he looks at me and he goes, where'd you hear that? Who told you that? And
Jalen.
I was like, and it was Jalen, and I think that it had been alluded to by Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson as well. But that was interesting, and that'll be fun to see because that's not something that his previous coaches thought about. He has done it sometimes, but very little. All right, I just thought we needed to give a little something to the audience before we bring in one of our favorite people on the Bears beat. Of course, from WGN Television, hosts the show GN Sports every single night on good old Channel 9. He is, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the one and only Jared Payton. Jared, what's going on, man? You're on the Score and the Take the North podcast.
Man, what's going on, Dan? What's going on, Groats? Man, you guys got people in the studio, live audience, man. I wasn't ready for the applause. Thank you to the crowd out there. How you fellas doing?
Well, we know you've already lied because you're always ready. You're always bringing max enthusiasm, and we expect nothing less tonight.
Yeah, man. Just super excited. I was just on doing the 4 o'clock news, and I was just super excited that we got the draft coming up, and I'm listening to Antoine Randall L. I threw the sound with him, and I'm just how excited he is about this upcoming season. I know everybody that's sitting inside with you guys for the podcast tonight are excited as well.
Did you hear him talking about Dennis Gentry, of all people? Pinky, talking about Willie Gault, and Dan and I were the ones kind of asking those questions about his Chicago-ness, and I think it was you that asked who was Dan,
just what your childhood memories of a Bears fan were.
He's 45 years old, which would put him at 6 or 7 during the '85 Bears, and he's throwing out these Bears names, and I'm palpitating in the audience, in the media room. What'd you think about that, JP?
Well, I'll tell you, all those guys are kind of like uncles to me. So for me and Dennis Gentry, those guys were at my house hanging out with my dad. Those were his close friends. So just to see this thing come back full circle for Antoine, it just brings a lot of joy to me because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but my going into the process of recruiting, I had to pick out those 5 schools, and one of them was Indiana, and I wasn't going to go to Indiana, but the only reason why I was going on my visit was because Antoine was going to be my host, and I used to think he walked on water as a guy that started playing football his junior year and was a quarterback like him, and I just remember being around him, hanging out with him, and so to be able to see him back at home, it just brings a lot of joy to me that he's back here, but just looking at his title, too, everything that he's about, assistant head coach, I mean, he's prime in the next couple of years or whatever that is. You can tell that he's gearing up at some point to be a head coach.
So, JP, we know how you ride the roller coaster with this football team, and I think back to some conversations we had over the phone in December of just how is this ever going to get fixed? You fast forward now 4 months later, you see the what they've done with the hiring of Ben Johnson. What is your early reaction to Ben's arrival and what it can and should mean to this franchise?
Dan, it brings hope. I think a different hope. I think we've all kind of sit back and we've had these times and we live these moments as Bears fans that we hope that this is the year, but there's something different about Ben Johnson. And I think him being here and seeing what him and Ryan are doing together, it excites me because you have a head coach that is an offensive-minded guy, but it also is a one-of-one. We're so used to guys coming from different trees and they're bringing an offense. This is his offense. And so now you have the mix of the coach that everybody wanted, and that's including me, but also a quarterback that is going into his second year that has all the potential in the world. And so now I want to see those two worlds collide. I think it goes back to when I was at the Super Bowl of talking to Jared Goff. He was a Walter Payton Man of the Year award nominee, and we were at one of the events at the Boys and Girls Club, and I remember, walking up to him before I was leaving, and I said, dude, just please tell me about Ben. He goes, dude, you guys got a really good one. He's one of the best. And he goes, no nonsense. And when it comes down to him, he might look nice on the outside, and you might question him a little bit, but when it comes down to working on the field, he's going to hold everybody accountable, and he is going to be hard-nosed. And to me, that's what this organization needs moving forward. I mean, we need that. And just looking at how things with Matt Eberflus and how it ended with him being fired, I knew that there was something inside that locker room where it had to be a little bit tighter. Guys needed to be held accountable, and Ben's going to do that. But also just his vision through this process so far of the coaches that he brought in. Dennis Allen, to me, I think that's a great fit for him. And just all the things that I'm seeing now, it gives me hope that this thing is going to get onto the right track.
Well, I could tell you, and I think Dan had backed me up on this, that when Dan and I were down in the meet and greet with all of the position assistants, the takeaway is, like, if there's a broad takeaway from it, discipline. They're all talking tough, which is good. And
right.
I said, we can bring our conversation that we just had in the hallway to light. I said, like, they needed discipline. But I'm not sure if we want to really put that on professional players. But I think they need it, and they've embraced it, JP.
Well, listen, it grows. I don't think you can overstate it. I think it's something that was very visible to the people that cover the team, to the people on the outside that are just fans. I think it really boils down to this is my feeling, ladies and gentlemen, and don't know anything, didn't hear anything. This is all me. I look at how last year was for Caleb Williams, and they're not really being held accountable because I don't think there was anybody there too, where you were looking at who was coaching him, who was around him inside of Hallis Hall. I think now things have changed a little bit because Ben is going to hold him accountable. I think he is going to push him a little bit more. He is going to get him out of his comfort zone. And I think Caleb needs that. I think the leash was a little bit too long for him in year one, giving him a lot of leeway, but also too much on his plate for him to figure out on his own, to now have to kind of rein it back a little bit. I think for Caleb, he's going to like that, but it's also going to push him to being the best player that he can be. And when you have – you guys know, when you win a stiff arm trophy, man, there's something special about you. Like, it doesn't always translate over into the NFL. I get that. But we've seen the flashes of this young man from last season with an offensive line that was suspect at times, and some of it was his fault, some was the offensive line's fault, whatever it was. Some of it was the offensive scheme. But I think now it gives him the opportunity, the way things are being set up around him, for him to truly be successful going into year two.
So building out that, JP, what's the minimum bar that Caleb has to clear in year two? We know that he's not going to reach the heights of superstardom by Thanksgiving, but what do you need to see by the end of the season to believe that this union is going to work?
I think decision-making, I think everything in that Esquire magazine article that he talked about, his footwork, his decision-making. I think last year we saw a young man that was trying not to make as many mistakes as a rookie. And there was a lot of times, Dan, you and I had conversations where I just said, I just want to see this dude let it rip, man. Like, if you're going to throw an interception, throw an interception. I just want to see you rip it. I think he's going to understand this offense and what Ben's trying to do, but also let it loose just a little bit more. So I think it comes to the little stuff, the footwork, understanding his protections, and taking advantage of him. But also what I loved is that he took care of himself, not always taking those big hits when he was moving outside the pocket, sacrificing yardage for the football. And I think just really staying on that task of letting it rip, but also to understanding that he has guys around him. And to me, it comes down to, can they establish a running game and take some of the pressure off of him, where I understand the focal point is on the quarterback, but if you can consistently run the football in the NFL, you take a lot of pressure off the guy that is underneath center and give him an opportunity to really truly maneuver in the run pass option.
That is the voice of Jarrett Payton, and this right here is a live edition of the Take the North podcast on Chicago Sports Radio 670. The Score. We got a full house of people here. We're going to engage with you guys coming up in just a little bit. So if you guys have got questions or comments, or if you just need to vent, that will be coming up here in our next segment. Jarrett, let's get down to it. I bet you this audience right here would like to know who you, sir, would take at number 10 if you had the choice of any of the players that are on the board right now. You're on the clock, buddy. You're on the clock right now.
Come on. What you're just saying, like anybody? Like
Realistic. Yeah. Who are you zeroing in on at the number 10 overall pick? And if you don't want to give a specific player,
no, I can't. Groves, you put me on the clock.
You're on the clock, right? The time is a ticking here, JP. Come on.
Right, I got you. I'm in the mode of where Ryan has been in this offseason, and that's really addressing the offensive line. So for me, it's not a sexy pick, but to me, it's what you're going to have a player that could be around for the next 10 years. I would definitely look at the tackle position, and I know if Will Campbell's there, if Membu's there, I think those guys would definitely, where you don't have to think about it anymore. You pair both sides of your tackles are young guys, because I just don't know how much everybody truly inside of that Haugh believe in Braxton Jones. And I know this is a crucial year for him, but I just think you need to start thinking about the future and solidify that. I know Ashton Genty's not going to be there, so I mean, I'm the Score's resident running back, so I would always love a running back. I think that would be awesome, but I don't think you can go wrong as well if you were gonna get another weapon for Caleb Williams, maybe at the tight end position, right? I mean, Tyler Warren could be there, and I've watched a lot of him at Penn State. Colson Loveland as well. Both those guys, I think what Ben's trying to do offensively and mirror what he did in Detroit, I think those guys paired with Cole Kmet, one of those guys paired with Cole Kmet could really be, they could be nasty on the offensive side of the ball.
JP just picked 5 guys for the Bears.
You
got them all.
He did pick. Hey, we get all 5 of them. What's really interesting is, I don't know if you heard, Matt Miller was on the Score of ESPN today, and he said with Spiegel and Holmes, he actually said that he likes Colson Loveland better than Tyler Warren. He didn't say that he's a bad player by any means, but he likes that player better.
Only reason why I said I watched Tyler so much that he's one of those guys that's a true football player. And I look at when my pops would look at people when I would watch games with him, like he would be like, that's a football player. He reminds me of a guy that can do a little bit of everything. So, but with Colson, I don't think he could go wrong. I think both guys have different things that they do well, but would add a lot of value to what the Bears are trying to do on offense.
JP, you get to do a lot of cool things in your life, and that includes being on stage with Eddie Vedder at a Pearl Jam concert. But I think the Super Bowl for you is such a cool week because you're right in the center of that Walter Payton Man of the Year stuff. And you mentioned talking with Jared Goff earlier, but I know you also spent time with Grady Jarrett the last couple years, and you understand a little bit about who the Bears are getting as a person. Can you just speak to the interactions you're allowed to have with these guys that are such pillars of the league?
Dan, I just got chills down my arms, man. Like, as soon as you mentioned Grady Jarrett's name, I mean, this young man is I shouldn't call him young man. He's a vet, man. He's got double-digit years in the league. But when you talk about a stand-up human being and what he's doing inside the community, especially out in Atlanta, a stand-up guy, but also as well just a football player. And I think when you look at this roster coming into this season, when you start adding guys like Joe Tooney, guys that have been around that actually have been there, done that, it adds value inside of that locker room. And Grady's one of those guys. And so it was crazy to have the conversation with him in New Orleans, sitting down Super Bowl Sunday, and we were just talking about how we needed to connect a little bit more. And I was going to go out to Atlanta and do some stuff with him in the community. And then he comes here. And the day of the press conference, when they introduced him, I called him right before I got on the show with Lawrence and with Lawrence and those guys. And so I was like, with Speaks, I was like, yo, I'm going to talk to him. And he goes, Jared, I'm here. I can't wait for this opportunity. And so I think the Bears are not only getting a really good football player, but they're also getting a stand-up guy in the community and a guy that's really going to elevate and kind of show people how to work inside of that Bears locker room.
Jared, this has been great. Love having you on this live edition of Take the North on the Score. But I swear to God, if you ever go on stage with Pearl Jam again and I'm at the show, and you knew I was at that show, and you don't invite me up to the stage, you and I are going to have a problem.
Grode, I'm just telling you, the craziest thing is that Eddie and I have become close friends.
Okay.
Text each other all the time. I mean, it's kind of crazy to me. It's kind of weird. Wishing each other a Merry Christmas is this is a little bit too much.
Get out of here. I don't want to hear any of that. That's all for me, and you get it all. Jared, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming on Take the North. We appreciate you.
Thanks, JP.
What's happening, everybody? You guys sound great. You guys look great. Again, thank you all for coming out here. This is Take the North live on 670 The Score. We are coming you live from the Blue Cross Blue Shield performance stage in front of a live studio audience. And we just saw it, that we got the overflow crowd coming in. We got a 23 coming in. I assume that's the 23, the Devin Hester right there. His name actually came up today because Richard Hightower, the special teams coordinator, was asked about Devin Duvernay. This is a two-time Pro Bowler. He was All-Pro in 2021, and Hightower said, we're not calling him Devin, though, until he does some Devin-like stuff. So he said that we're just calling him Duvernay or Duvy, I guess it is, but he has not earned Devin yet.
Those are the rules.
Those are the rules.
You got to score a touchdown, and then maybe people will call you by your first name.
Those are the rules. We have some rules of our own here. Dan and I got a couple things we'd like to discuss with you before we start to engage you guys and take some questions and some comments. Dan's rule. This is Dan's rule, and I'm saying that just in case you don't like the rule. Dan's rule is if you get the microphone, you do have to tell us who you want the Bears to select at number. Is that too stressful for you, sir? Is that going to be a problem? We like it. Pick a name. This gentleman right here will tell you a name, okay? So just give us a name on who you want the Bears to draft at number 10 and then proceed with your comment. Again, that is a weedsy rule right there.
I think we downgraded it from a rule to a heavy suggestion. So we'll see if we can handle that.
Fair enough. Dan, you and I both noticed the sort of the new vibe with Ben Johnson. What are some more of your takeaways in terms of that?
Yeah, listen, I think one of the things that's left an impression on me in the early stages of getting to know Ben is how competitive he is and how much when you're around him, his passion is palpable, right? And so, I think you're hearing that from the assistant staff now, the assistant coaches who understand that there is an urgency to what they do every single day that they're in there, and Ben doesn't let things slide. Now, look, all that stuff has to turn into production. It's got to turn into results. Otherwise, it's just meaningless April chatter. But I think you got the similar vibe today talking to some of those assistants that there's just a no-nonsense approach to things that I don't know we thought was there when we were thinking about Ben Johnson back in November and December.
Eric Bieniemy, ladies and gentlemen, is no nonsense. I sat down at a table with Eric Bieniemy today, and we were all kind of reporters asking him that because he has got that reputation of being kind of a hard coach, and he basically said, you do it the way I want it done, the way we want it done, there's not going to be a problem. And I'm not quoting exactly, but pretty close. He said something.
Do you want me to quote it exactly?
I would like you to quote it exactly. Look at Dan's got his Tribune reporter notepad right there.
Eric Bieniemy said, if you're not doing the things we expect you to do, I'm going to be in your ass.
That's it.
There it is.
Yeah. I think.
Did we get canceled on that one, or are we good on that one?
No. Actually, I had something similar because it was talking to him at different times.
Yeah,
it's just like this whole meet and greet thing. You could choose your own adventure. And so when I sat to him, he said, "I'll sit your ass." So it was pretty similar, but clearly there was a theme happening. And I think Eric Bieniemy probably got it across the best, obviously, but this is the way. And it was definitely jarring, like, because you understand, like, football coaches are all going to be a little bit hard. They're all going to be, but it was very noticeable what was going on. One other nugget too that I wanted to share with you guys. This is my reporter's notebook right here. Dennis Allen, the new defensive coordinator, was asked today if the pass rush is now a strength because they have Dio Odangbo and Grady Jarrett. And I thought he gave a great answer. He said, it's just a start. So I don't know if, like, of course we read into stuff and we think, maybe they will take an edge rusher.
So this is the other part of it, because he was very emphatic in saying that he believes very strongly in generating the pass rush from the middle, from the interior. And that's one of those things that you hear the week before the draft and you're like, is he just saying that so that the other teams don't think they're taking an edge and they really want to get the pass rush from an edge and they're going to just shift gears next week? So I don't know. We don't know if Dennis Allen's lying yet, but certainly I think he's got visions for what that pass rush needs to look like, and I think it needs to be really deep to accomplish that.
Yeah, so there are things. We were educated today out at Hallis Hall. This would be a time now, folks. If you guys have wow, the hands goes right up front row here. If you guys have questions, just put your hands up. If again, you've got to give us strongly suggested to tell us who you would like the Bears to choose at number 10. I do believe this gentleman right here had his hand up first, and then we'll go to you. So, Adam Stadzinski, if you could give the microphone to this fine gentleman. What's your name, sir?
My name's Josh.
Josh, what's going on, Josh? How are you, buddy?
Not too much. Great podcast, guys.
Oh, thank you.
And
it's
so I don't get kicked out, I'll follow the Wiederer rule.
Okay.
I'm going to say Ashton Genty.
Okay.
But the reason being is I think the Bears have so many holes that need to be filled. We know they're going to pick. They probably have a position or even a player in mind that they're going to pick. They've done that pretty much every year. But my opinion is they should really take the best available player off the board. So I said Genty if he's there, but I really want him to pick the absolute best player. It seems like the successful teams have been doing that. I'm interested in your guys' thoughts.
So I'm all for. I've said it for weeks. The Genty discussion is fascinating to me. I think he's one of these players that there's no chance you look back on in 6 to 8 years and say we regret doing that. I mean, the guy's going to be a big time difference maker in the league, and so then it's like, do you look at the depth of the talent in this draft class and say, well, we could wait until 39 or 41 to take a running back, or do you do what you're suggesting and say just get an absolute difference maker that you know is going to be good in the NFL at number 10 and have no regrets? So I'm all for it. It's another weapon for Ben Johnson, Grody, and I think that, like, you give Ben Johnson weapons and then you just sit back and watch the entertainment.
We've seen what he's done with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Sadly, the Montgomery portion of it. The one thing that, with the people that I have spoken to on and off the air about the running backs room is that we get closer to the draft. Of course, Ashton Genty is still considered the top running back in the draft, but more and more people are talking about Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, that there's a pretty fine line between those guys. Now, who knows how it plays out at the NFL level, but when you start to hear that, then do you want to waste a 10th overall pick on Ashton Genty if you can move down to get him, or maybe even get another one of these running, whether it's Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson or Omarion Hampton, like I said, with one of your 2 second-round picks?
Yeah, there's about 7 names of guys that could go in the top 50 at the running back position, and it's going to be fascinating to see how that unfolds. And so that's just something you have to consider. Listen, like we've said for weeks, that it's going to be very hard for the Bears to get this pick wrong.
Yeah.
Some people say, I don't believe you, but the options are great at 10.
Yeah, I agree. All right, who is our next customer here on the Take the North podcast live on the Score? What's happening?
My name's Adam, drove up from Champaign.
Excellent.
Thanks, Adam.
I.
To follow the rule, I would go with Mason Graham in the draft, even if they have to move up a couple of spots to secure him. But my question is, all the talk of tight end, if they do go with a second tight end to pair with Kmet, who's under a long-term deal, what does that look like in Ben Johnson's offense? How could that be utilized to have 2 young, talented tight ends under contract?
I mean, listen, like they want depth at that position, they want to use 2 tight ends. And now I think it's just like, what's the flavor? Do you want the guy like Tyler Warren, who projects more as kind of that versatile guy who can give you a lot as a blocker, can go out and get open and break tackles, or Colston Loveland, who's a more natural receiver, more gifted as a pass catcher and just in getting open? Again, like that's a position that 100% you could roll those dice at number 10, take one. Again, Ben has talked about, don't get caught up in what position they play if they're a weapon, right? Like, this is just an offensive weapon. If it's a receiver, a tight end, or a running back, they all sort of fall under the same umbrella. If they can help the offense be more explosive, we're all for considering them.
No doubt about it. And I think you mentioned Mason Graham as well. Yeah, he was my first love in this draft. Like, we all, like, I've been on this roller coaster. We all are. Like, from the very beginning, when the season ends and your team didn't perform well, you just start thinking about the draft. He was the first guy. I just don't think he's going to be there at 10. However, I spoke to somebody from the NFL Network last week, and she said that she thinks that Mason Graham will be there at 10. A couple people said that, but I don't know if that's good, because
as he suggested also, what if he's there at 8 and you start saying, okay, what if we could take our 3rd round pick, move up 2 slots and take him at 8 and get a guy for that defensive interior that's so important.
No doubt about it. Do we have any more questions
here?
We have several. Okay. Let's Bears.
Right here.
Bears. He's got a Bears hat on, so even if you weren't first, Bears.
Hey, my name's Jason.
Hi, Jason.
I was thinking about maybe like Armand Membu. Is there a possibility of maybe converting him to left tackle? And maybe the tackle from LSU, is it Will Campbell?
Will Campbell, the short arm guy. Yeah. The Will Campbell stuff is very interesting, and we'll address Membu as well. Yeah, I think that he absolutely would be somebody that would be a good pick for the Bears. Membu.
Well, right. What that does, it opens up the door to the conversation on who plays left tackle. Do you try to convert Membu, who hasn't really done it in college, or do you take Darnell Wright, who did play left tackle in college before he played his last year at Tennessee on the right side? That's something when they drafted Darnell Wright, they said this is in the potential to eventually move him to left. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know what they're thinking upstairs or the coaching staff about the movement.
I don't think I like the idea of messing with Darnell Wright. It seems like he's a progressing, get a little bit better every year guy. I wouldn't want him. I mean, we've seen that through the years. Remember when Kyle Long was here and they started trying him at different positions, and it just like he was a guard. They tried him at left tackle. It didn't work out particularly. I haven't seen it work out a lot where you try to force a guy into a different position, even on the offensive line.
He's done it before. So, I mean, they'd have to experiment with that this spring and see how it shakes out. The Will Campbell suggestion, I had this argument with my colleague at the Tribune, Sean Hammond, about a month ago. This conversation about arm length, right? Like, his arms are too short to draft him at 10, but if he was picked at 22, he'd be the steal of the draft, right? Like, so I don't get it. Either his arms are long enough to play NFL football at a high level, or they're not. 10 or 22, how does that suddenly change the conversation on whether the guy's good as a future pro?
My understanding is that the short arm thing, it is literally GM to GM, right, scout to scout in terms of whether they would accept that or not. Remember Peter Skoronski from Northwestern last year? We had the same exact discussion. He did, for whatever it's worth, he did end up being a guard. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Campbell as well. We need to take one more break here on our live edition of the Take the North podcast on The Score. When we return, I know that we will do another round of questions because we are so appreciative of you guys from Champaign.
Yeah,
you guys must really love Dan Weeder. I mean, that is some love right there. So again, thanks to all of you for being here. Mark Grody, Dan Weeder, Take the North podcast on Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. All right, Mr. Studzinski, who are we going to speak with next here on Take the North? We are passing the microphone around. We are not taking phone calls. We are taking live audience participation.
Better
Sir.
than phone calls.
How you guys doing? My name's Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, I was just wondering, what's the probability of the Bears taking multiple linemen, offensive and defensive, in the draft? I really think they're deficient there over the years, and they haven't stockpiled in that, and I really believe that's what wins football games.
Look, I think it's I think it's a priority. I really do. I think they understand that. I think they watched the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl with a defensive line that just sent waves and waves of high-profile defensive linemen at other offenses. I think that they are going to be invested as much as they can be. 7 picks going in, so you've got to spread them around accordingly. But I would be stunned if both lines aren't addressed.
It's a don't stop now situation, I think, for the Bears. They've done very well with what they have done so far in the offseason with Drew Dahlman and Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson on the offensive line. You cannot argue with that. But if they were to, as Jared Payton said, predicting or hoping that the Bears take another offensive lineman, that would not be shocking at all. And despite getting Grady Jarrett here and Dio Odangbo, I mean, they said it today, Dan, that's just a start on the defensive line.
Keep stockpiling. I'm with you, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do we have next out there? Right there, Bears.
Okay, thank you. My name is Robert.
Hey, Robert. Thanks for coming, man.
Glad to be here. One thing, I just have a quick comment. The one thing, besides the draft, I'm offered BPA at 10, starting with Genty, but he won't be there, most likely. But any defensive player, I'm offered that, starting with the defense. And one thing I would like to see mostly going into next year is Caleb improve on his accuracy. I think that's the biggest key to the next season. Left a lot of, I think him and DJ Moore got to get going. Like his rapport with Allen, I'm like, that's got to change. So one thing, I just improve the accuracy. Like we seeing Jaden Daniels kill it. Like accuracy was not a problem with him. And we got to look at Caleb every week, like missing throws, especially the deep ones. So I just hope he works on that. I think we'll see a big improvement. At least the wins will start piling up.
It's a great thought. The lack of accuracy was pretty shocking from Caleb last year. And I think
at times it was off,
It was off. I mean, what I'm saying, like, shocking because that was never something, like, accuracy was not an issue with him. And even Heath, and trust me, like, talking to Caleb on and off mic, that bugs him more than anything because he's always walking around, that ain't me. That's not me. So I would think that, yes, that will be priority number one. Well, maybe not number one, the basics and Ben Johnson, but I think Caleb knows.
There's a lot of priorities. One little nugget for Robert from today. You tell me if you picked up on this as well. When Antoine Randall started talking about DJ Moore today, he laughed, and it was a laugh of optimism where it was like, oh, man, the things that we can do with this guy, right? Like we can use him inside. We can use him outside. We can give him jet sweeps. We can throw a little screen. So it seemed like there was like some real excitement for Antoine Randall to unlock some new things in DJ Moore under Ben's guidance as well.
That's such a great point because I was going to, the follow-up for me was going to be, oh, you want him to be like Antoine Randall, huh? Just line up anywhere because that's what Antoine Randall did. I think we got time for one more question out there. Go ahead, sir.
What's going on? Brian?
Hey, Brian.
I'm partial to offensive line since that's where I played, so that at 10. But I swear, if any of those skill players drop down there or any of those defensive tackles that we just know or defensive ends that we know we're not going to get happen to come to us, grab that. Don't play around. My question is this. Why do you guys honestly believe that we had to go through the Shane Waldron era?
Man, that's like it's like the Matt Nagy whys, the why portion of it all. Dan, you want to take that one?
Not really.
I don't have all the answers.
I don't know. And you hear Ryan Poles talk about there being compatibility issues between Shane and Caleb, and you're just like, yeah, you probably should have vetted that out before you hired him, right? Like that was a pretty big investment made in both. I don't know. And even looking back on it, it's still jarring to think that he didn't make it till November, right? Like, I mean, this is the most important year of the number one overall pick's career coming out of the gates, and you pair him up with a coordinator who doesn't even get to November, and then his head coach didn't get through Thanksgiving dinner.
It's just like, I don't want to get going because I've done this rant like 4 or 5 times. They picked the wrong damn coaching staff for a quarterback that you have never drafted in your life, the number one overall, and they weren't ready for him. The infrastructure was not there for him. Like, Shane Waldron turned out to be the absolute worst case scenario in terms of being a communicator. I didn't hate what Shane Waldron was trying to do early, and that was, this is a great prospect. Let's put it all on his plate. But they needed to take more off the plate, and they needed to do it right, and they needed to have him practice correctly, and they just didn't. There's so many things to say about it.
There was just no connection, and when that connection isn't there, you're in big trouble.
Right, and not a great connection with the media. No, Shane Waldron was fine, but sometimes he didn't give us exactly what we wanted. Unfortunately, this is it. We knew, Dan, this hour was going to fly.
It always does.
we talked about that. We're like, it's gonna be over in a second, and it is. Thank you all for coming here. Seriously, it means a lot to us to see you guys all here. Hopefully we could do this again. I hope you guys continue to support the Take the North podcast with Weedsy and me and Studs. So we really appreciate it. I want to say some thank yous here to that guy right over there, Adam Studzinski. Yeah. Connor O'Donnell back there running the Twitch. Rich Wyatt, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Parth as well. Ryan Porth, one of the bosses. Thanks to Mitch Rosen for letting us do all of this. So shout out to Mitch, and again to all of you. Thank you so much for being out here, Dan. This was an absolute blast. It's a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, it's great audience out here, and they said that you're going to cook dinner for everybody across the hall in that kitchen over
there.
Absolutely,
yeah. Performance Kitchen, come on over. I'm going to go right to the elevator. So no, thanks again. What do we got next? Ranji? We got Ranji coming up next on the score. Yes, my guy Chris Ranji, fellow Redbird, is coming up next. Thanks again to everybody. For Dan Wiederer, I am Mark Grody. This is the Take the North Live podcast. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Great talk. See you out there.